My lawyer whispered something to the judge. Just 8 words. 8 simple words about liabilities and sole responsibility. And Vincent's face, that smug, self-satisfied face that had sneered at me across mediation tables for 3 months, went completely white. His hand, the one holding his girlfriend Brittany's manicured fingers, went slack. She had to catch herself against the table. His lawyer's eyes went wide, flipping frantically through documents they thought they'd already won with. And me. For the first time in 3 years, 3 long, patient, agonizing years, I let myself smile. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand how we got here. How a woman everyone thought had lost everything actually played the longest, most meticulous game of her life. My name is Alexis. I'm 34 years old. And until 3 months ago, I was married to Vincent Mercer. 15 years of marriage. That's longer than most people keep their New Year's resolutions. Longer than some celebrities stay sober. And definitely longer than my sanity should have lasted. But I'm a stubborn woman. I get it from my grandmother. The law firm smelled like old paper and expensive cologne. I was 17, wearing a blazer from Goodwill that didn't quite fit, sitting at a metal desk in the filing room of Henderson and Price. My job was simple: alphabetize, file, don't lose anything. Minimum wage. Maximum boredom. But it was mine. I was good at it. Really good. Within 6 months, I'd reorganized their entire system. Color-coded. Cross-referenced. The senior partners actually knew where things were for the first time in a decade. By 18, they promoted me to legal assistant. I started sitting in on client meetings, taking notes, learning how money really worked. How contracts protected people. How the right paperwork at the right time could change everything. That's where I learned that details matter. That the fine print isn't boring, it's where the truth lives. Vincent walked into my life at a client appreciation event when I was 19. He was 24, wearing a suit that was slightly too nice for someone who drove a 1998 Honda. He had this energy, this confidence that made you want to believe him. He talked about real estate like other guys talked about sports. Flipping houses. Building equity. Creating generational wealth. I'm going to change the Des Moines skyline, he said, holding a cheap glass of champagne like it was Dom Perignon. I didn't swoon. But I was intrigued. He asked me out 3 times before I said yes. On our first date, he brought a business plan, actually brought a 3-ring binder to dinner. He wanted to know if the structure looked legal. If I saw any problems. I saw problems. I told him exactly what they were. He looked at me like I'd just solved a puzzle he'd been stuck on for months. You're brilliant, he said. I wasn't. I was just detail-oriented. But I liked that he noticed. We got married 4 months later at the courthouse. My grandmother was the only one who came. She pulled me aside before I signed the marriage license. Keep your own money, Alexis, she whispered. Not secret money. Just yours. Something nobody can take. I promised her I would. Tyler was born 10 months later. I was 20, exhausted, and still working part-time at the firm while Vincent chased his first real estate deal. I'd work my shift, come home, feed the baby, then stay up until midnight helping Vincent draft purchase agreements. For 3 years, we scraped by. Ramen for dinner. Thrift store clothes. Every dollar went into the business. Then Vincent closed his first commercial property deal. $60,000 commission. I watched him hold that check like it was a lottery ticket. His eyes changed that day. He'd tasted success, and he wanted more. Quit the firm, he said. I need you full-time. I need someone I can trust with the books, the clients, everything. We're building an empire, Alexis. Together. I believed him. So I quit. I walked away from my salary, my benefits, my 401k contributions. I became Vincent Mercer's unpaid operations manager, bookkeeper, client services department, and marketing team. For 11 years, I built his dream. And for 11 years, I disappeared into it. It started on a Tuesday night, 3 years before Vincent asked for the divorce. He was working late again, or so he said. I was at the kitchen table, reconciling the business accounts like I did every month. Numbers were my language. I spoke it fluently. That's when I saw it. A transfer I didn't recognize. $18,000 to an account I'd never seen before. Then another. Then another pattern I couldn't explain. I dug deeper. By 3 in the morning, I was surrounded by printouts, my laptop screen glowing in the dark kitchen. What I found made my hands shake. Our house, the beautiful 4-bedroom with the sage green shutters that everyone complimented, had 3 mortgages on it. 3. The original loan of $400,000. A second mortgage of $350,000 taken out 4 years ago. A third mortgage of another $350,000 taken out 2 years ago. Total owed, $1.1 million. Actual value of the house, maybe $850,000. We were underwater by $250,000 on a home I thought we owned outright. The business was worse. Lines of credit maxed out at $200,000. Back taxes owed of $85,000. Vendor debts of $120,000. Equipment loans of $75,000. Vincent's thriving real estate company was drowning in nearly $500,000 of debt. Even the cars weren't real. All 3 were leased with balloon payments coming due. We didn't own anything. We just had very expensive monthly obligations. I sat there in the dark, doing the math over and over, hoping I'd made a mistake. Total debt, approximately $1.9 million. Total actual assets, maybe $1.6 million. We were $300,000 in the hole. Maybe more. But where had the money gone? Over the next 2 weeks, I traced every transaction I could find. The picture that emerged was devastating. Cryptocurrency investments, $180,000. All lost. Gambling, $75,000. Gone. An apartment I didn't know about, rented for a woman I didn't know about, $60,000 in rent and furnishings over 2 years. Lifestyle expenses that never made it home, watches, suits, trips I was never invited on, another $85,000. My husband wasn't building an empire. He was building a house of cards. With borrowed cards. That were also on fire. We looked rich the same way a mannequin looks alive. Convincing from a distance. Completely hollow up close. My first instinct was to scream. To confront him. To demand answers. But I knew Vincent. I'd watched him operate for over a decade. If I confronted him, he'd manipulate the narrative. Make me feel crazy for questioning him. He'd probably find a way to blame me for not understanding business. And worse, if he knew I knew, he might try to take control of my separate money too. See, I'd always kept something of my own. My grandmother's voice in my head, a woman should have her own money. My IRA for my law firm years had grown to about $180,000. That was mine. Earned from my job. Separate property under the law. And then there was Grandma herself. She'd passed away when I was 28. She left me $340,000. Her will was specific, this money is for Alexis alone. I'd kept it in a separate account for 6 years. Never commingling it with Vincent's finances. Never using it for household expenses. My grandmother kept her own account for 50 years. Not secret money, she'd always say. Just mine. Smartest woman I ever knew. I had roughly $520,000 that was completely, legally, separately mine. So I didn't confront Vincent. I protected myself. The next morning, I called my Uncle Frank. He'd been an accountant for 40 years before retiring to Arizona. He was the only person I trusted with numbers as much as I trusted myself. I need to create a trust, I told him. For Tyler. Irrevocable. Untouchable. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "What did you find, Alexis?" "Everything." Within 2 weeks, it was done. My IRA. My inheritance. All of it went into an irrevocable trust for Tyler's future. College. A first home. Emergencies. My name wasn't on it as a beneficiary. Vincent's name certainly wasn't. It was for Tyler. And it was bulletproof. Then I started documenting everything. Every mortgage document. Every hidden account. Every suspicious transaction. I printed copies and kept them at my sister Sarah's house. I put copies in a safe deposit box at a bank across town. I saved everything on an encrypted drive that I kept in a storage unit Vincent didn't know existed. Then I waited. I knew Vincent would leave eventually. Men like him always do. They get bored. They find someone younger. They decide they deserve more. I just had to be ready when it happened. 3 years of waiting. 3 years of watching him dig the hole deeper. 3 years of smiling at dinner parties while knowing our entire life was built on quicksand. I got very good at patience. And very good at pretending. I became the perfect wife. Attentive. Supportive. Never questioning. I laughed at his jokes at client events. I nodded when he explained business decisions I already understood better than he did. I played small so he could feel big. Every month, I updated my files. New credit card statements showing purchases I never saw. New loan documents he forgot to hide. New bank transfers to accounts that had nothing to do with our family. I watched the debt grow from $1.9 million to $2.1 million. And I documented every single dollar. My sister thought I was losing my mind. "Just leave him," Sarah said. "You have your own money. Take Tyler and go." But I couldn't. Not yet. Because if I left, Vincent would keep the business. He'd keep the reputation. He'd keep the illusion of success. He'd find another woman to do the work I'd done, and he'd do the same thing to her. And Tyler would watch his father get away with it. Would learn that this is how you treat the people who build your dreams for you. No. I wasn't leaving. I was waiting for Vincent to throw me away. Because when he did, when he demanded everything, thinking he was taking assets, he'd actually be demanding all the debt he'd hidden. And I'd let him have it. Vincent came home on a Tuesday evening 3 months ago. I was making his favorite pot roast, because even after everything, I still played the part. He sat down at the kitchen table with a manila folder. "I want a divorce," he said. No preamble. No emotion. Just business. "I want the house, the cars, the business. Everything. You can keep Tyler. Keep Tyler." Like our 15-year-old son was a leftover side dish. I just stared at him, letting the shock register on my face. It wasn't hard to fake, even though I'd known this was coming. Hearing it out loud still felt like a slap. "Why?" I whispered. "I've outgrown this," he said, gesturing vaguely at me, at our kitchen, at our life. "I need someone who understands ambition. Who wants more." 2 days later, he brought her home. Brittany Sawyer. 27 years old. Blonde highlights that cost more than our monthly grocery budget. She worked in his office as a client experience coordinator, which apparently meant she coordinated experiences with my husband. She walked into my kitchen wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater, carrying a green smoothie. "Oh my God, this place has such good bones," she said, looking around like she was touring a fixer-upper. "But we're definitely going to need to update. The vibe is very 2015. She said we. Vincent had moved me into the guest room the day before. Toy closet, the walk-in I'd organized with matching hangers and labeled bins, was now Brittany's. She redecorated within a week. My sage green throw pillows, those I'd spent 2 months finding the perfect shade of, were replaced with blush pink. My family photos came down. In their place, she hung abstract art she'd bought at HomeGoods. She wore my apron. My grandmother's apron with the little strawberries embroidered on the pocket. She wore it while making smoothies in my blender, humming along to a playlist called Boss Babe Energy. Vincent watched her like she was the most fascinating thing he'd ever seen. At dinner at my table, cooked in my kitchen, they sat on the same side of the table, leaving me alone on the other side like a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. Tyler barely spoke. He pushed his food around his plate, looking between his father and this woman who'd invaded our home. "This is Brittany," Vincent said, like Tyler hadn't already met her 3 times. "She's going to be around a lot. I want you to make her feel welcome." Tyler looked at me. I gave him the smallest nod. "Sure, Dad," he said quietly. That night, I heard them laughing in what used to be our bedroom. I sat in the guest room, surrounded by boxes I'd packed with my remaining belongings, and I didn't cry. I updated my files instead. New evidence: cohabitation during marriage. Adultery. Moving girlfriend into marital home before divorce finalized. Vincent was building my case for me. All I had to do was wait. I called Diane the day after Vincent brought Brittany home. Diane Holloway had been my best friend since high school, 20 years of friendship, through bad boyfriends and worse haircuts, through Tyler's birth and my grandmother's funeral. If anyone would understand, it was Diane. He brought her to the house. Diane said, her voice dripping with outrage. "Alexis, that's insane. You need to fight this." "I don't have the energy," I said, making my voice small and defeated. "I just want it to be over." "You can't just give up," she insisted. "That business is half yours. That house is half yours." "I know," I whispered. "But I can't afford a long legal battle. Vincent has Harold Whitfield. I have nobody." "You have me," Diane said. "I'm here for whatever you need." Over the next few weeks, Diane became my constant support system. She'd come over with wine and tissues. She'd let me cry on her shoulder. She'd tell me I deserved better, that Vincent was making a huge mistake. But something felt off. Little things at first. I mentioned to Diane on a Wednesday that I was thinking about fighting for the lake house, a small cabin Vincent's parents had deeded to us 5 years ago. On Thursday, Vincent casually mentioned, "Don't even think about going after the cabin. It's in my parents' name anyway. You'd lose." Except it wasn't in his parents' name. I'd filed the deed transfer myself. It was in both our names, free and clear. Vincent shouldn't have known I was even thinking about it. Then I told Diane I was looking at apartments in the Beaverdale neighborhood, good schools for Tyler, affordable rent. The next day, Vincent made a comment at breakfast. "Beaverdale's too expensive for you. You should look at something more realistic." That's when I knew. I tested it. I told Diane I'd hired a private investigator to look into Vincent's finances. I hadn't. But I wanted to see what would happen. 2 days later, Vincent's lawyer sent my lawyer a threatening letter about harassment and invasion of privacy, warning me against any extra-legal investigation tactics. Diane was feeding Vincent everything I told her. 20 years of friendship, and she'd sold me out. I thought back over the years, how Diane always lit up when Vincent walked into a room. How she'd compliment him just a little too enthusiastically. How she'd laugh at his jokes a little too hard. How she always asked about him first whenever we talked. She'd been carrying a torch for my husband for 2 decades. And Vincent, because he collected admirers like trophies, knew exactly how to use it. He probably made her feel special. Important. Different from other women. He probably implied they might get together after the divorce. Gave her just enough hope to keep her loyal. My best friend was his spy. I could have confronted her. Could have screamed and cried and ended the friendship dramatically. But I didn't. Because if Diane was feeding Vincent information, that meant I could feed Vincent exactly what I wanted him to believe. So I kept calling her. Kept crying on her shoulder. Kept playing the broken, defeated wife who didn't know what she was doing. And I started lying. I told Diane I'd given up on fighting for anything. That I just wanted $50,000 and a clean break. I told her I'd hired a mediator who agreed Vincent deserved everything because he'd built the business. I told her I was seeing a therapist who said I had learned helplessness and needed to work on my self-worth before I could handle a divorce. Every word was a lie. Every word went straight to Vincent. And every word made him more confident. More careless. More certain that I was too broken to fight back. He stopped being careful with financial documents. Stopped hiding his spending. Stopped worrying about what I might find. Because Diane told him I wasn't looking. Meanwhile, I documented everything. The mistress wasn't just my enemy. She was evidence. And my best friend wasn't just a traitor. She was a weapon I'd learned to aim. Before we continue, I just want to say something real quick. If you're still watching, thank you. Seriously. I see the view count, and I know a lot of you click away by now. But you're still here. That tells me you get it, you understand that some stories take time to unfold. If this story is resonating with you, if you've ever felt underestimated or discarded, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Not for me, for the community we're building here. Because your comment might be the one that helps someone else realize they're not alone. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I read every single one. The mediation room was smaller than I expected. Beige walls. A fake plant in the corner that had a layer of dust on its leaves. Harold Whitfield sat across from me with Vincent, both of them looking relaxed. Confident. Like this was already over. My lawyer, Nina Castellano, sat beside me. She'd tried one last time that morning to get me to reconsider. You're asking for almost nothing, she'd said in the parking lot. $50,000 after 15 years of marriage? After building his entire business? Alexis, this is insane. Trust me, I'd whispered. Now, sitting across from Vincent, I let my shoulders slump. I wore no makeup. An old cardigan. I'd made myself look as small and defeated as possible. The mediator, a tired-looking woman named Barbara, opened her folder. Mrs. Mercer, let's start with what you're asking for. I took a shaky breath, right on cue. I just want this to be over, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I can't do this anymore. The fighting, the lawyers, all of it. I just want peace. Vincent shifted in his seat. I could see him trying not to smile. I'm asking for $50,000, I continued. That's it. He can keep the house, the business, the cars. Everything. I just need enough to get an apartment for me and Tyler and start over. Harold Whitfield's eyebrows shot up. Even he seemed surprised. 50,000. Barbara repeated. Mrs. Mercer, you're entitled to significantly more than. I don't care about entitlement, I interrupted, letting my voice crack. I just want my son to have stability. I want